everyone. Welcome to the City of Oviedo CRA Governing Board meeting. It is 5:30 on Monday, May 1st. We have 5 board members with us this evening. Councilman Pollack will be here for the regular meeting, and Mr. Dave Axel is unable to be here as well. So at this time, I will turn the meeting over to Mr. John Jones. First we have is the approval of the minutes for our March 6th meeting. May I entertain a motion to do so?
I'll entertain it, or I'll make a motion to approve those minutes. Second.
Motion second. Any discussion? Hearing none, call the vote. All in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Now we're on to old business. Now I'll turn it over to Mr. John Jones.
Very good. Thank you very much, Mayor Persampier. John Jones with SNME, 1615 Edgewater Drive in Orlando, Florida. The old business items on our agenda this evening. First item is the parking structure due diligence activities, the status of that, and the second item is the CRA annual report. With regards to the parking structure due diligence activities, Mr. Kavanaugh is still completing his economic impact study, and we have placed a call to him to check on the status of that document, and it is still pending. With regards to the CRA annual report, we have attached to your agenda package a copy of the 2016 annual report that summarizes the activities of the CRA for the year 2016. So this is one of the reporting requirements due from the state, where you have to have your annual report prepared and available for public inspection.
John?
Yes, sir.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
In that CRA report, item number 2, Roman numeral number 2, you probably need to update that.
What is that?
Board members and staffing.
Yes, sir.
No big deal.
Is there anything else in the report? Tim, anything else?
No. That's it.
John, do you need a motion for us to accept this with those changes, or is it just...
Just one point of clarification. This is a look backwards in time, so this was the staffing during the 2016 period. Yes, sir. So next year's report will be reflective of this year's activity and this year's CRA board.
We were appointed back in March, so we didn't catch the 16 year?
No, sir. No, sir. This goes through the end of the fiscal year in September of last year, September 30th.
So March is before September. Anyway, whatever.
Yes, sir. We'll make the edits as needed.
So what you're saying, John, is half the year this was the board and half the year
Yes, sir.
another seated board.
Yes, sir. I apologize for the confusion.
All right, so this is the board that was seated at the beginning of the fiscal year. But
Yes,
as,
sir.
Member Tim is pointing out, this wasn't the board seated at the close of the fiscal year. So if you can clarify that, I think
Yes,
is what
sir.
he's asking for.
We'll revise the document accordingly.
Thank you. And you need no further action on it?
No, sir.
Okay. Next item is resolution number 106-17, ad valorem tax refund to the general fund. I'll turn that over to you, Mr. Jones, or should I turn it over to Mr. Cobb?
First, we're going to introduce the item, and then we have Mr. Boop, who's here to provide additional detail with regards to the item. This is a request for the CRA Governing Board to approve a budget amendment to transfer excess TIF allocations received by the CRA from the general fund for fiscal years 2015 and 2016. And Mr. Boop would like to provide you some additional background and his findings from the audit.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, CRA Board. During the audit last year, it was discovered that the city had not made a formal declaration by the ordinance as to what level it would support the CRA. So we went back, we reviewed the ordinance ourselves to basically understand what the auditor was directing us to do, and we did in fact find that the ordinance stipulated that the city can contribute between 50 and 95%. Going back and reviewing the evidence that was available to us, all we could find were the DR 420 TIF forms that were filed for both fiscal year 2015 and fiscal year 2016. Those forms basically stipulated to the Department of Revenue and to Seminole County that the rate of contribution was at 50%. We talked to both Seminole County. We also talked to the State Department of Revenue to see if we could amend those forms to go back to get them to equal to what the budget had said that we contributed, which was the rate of 95%. They said that those forms could not be amended retroactively to reflect that rate. So what we're requesting the CRA board to do is to authorize the reimbursement or the refund back to the general fund for the excess monies that were contributed by the general fund to the CRA.
And how much are those?
Roughly $269,000.
269.
$269,360.
Any questions from Mr. Booth?
At what time do we need to specify how much we're going to keep for the upcoming year? Or are we locked in again?
Great question. We talked about that in March, if you'll recall, during the March budget meeting that we had, and we will be bringing to you the question of what rate you want to contribute to the CRA. That will either be done sometime this month in May at the May 22nd meeting, or it will be done sometime in June. We really haven't figured that out yet.
Anything else from Mr. Booth?
A follow-up on that. So coming with the end of this fiscal year, this applies to going backwards only, correct?
Correct.
Okay, because we're getting the taxes a year off, so I think in
Correct.
the budget life cycle, okay, just make sure I'm understanding.
Okay. Anything else? All right. Thank you, Mr. Booth.
You want a motion?
I need a motion.
So moved.
Second?
Actually, that would be a motion to adopt Resolution 106-17?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Seconder, great.
Yes.
All right. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, call the vote. All in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We're up to item number 4, Resolution number 107-17, green bike lanes within the CRA.
Correct.
Mr. Jones.
Thank you very much, Mayor. This is a request for the CRA Governing Board to approve the scope of services with Van Ass Hagen Bruslin Incorporated, also known as VHB, to provide professional engineering services to develop criteria for marking bike lanes and estimates of probable construction cost for the installation of green bike lanes within the CRA in order to increase awareness and use of bicycles within the CRA safely. I'm sorry?
Go ahead.
All right. We have a brief slide presentation outlining the genesis, I guess, of the green bike lane marking. It is primarily used to call attention to potential conflict zones and identify areas where vehicles need to pay more attention to bicycles around intersections. And let me see if I can bring this up here on your screen. Pardon me. There we go. And so what this shows is the Manual of Uniform Traffic Code with regards to the design of the green bike lanes. Green bike lanes are used as a traffic control device whose need has to be demonstrated by a certain number of observed conflicts and interactions with bicycles and cars. And that is the genesis of the work that VHB will be doing with regards to identifying where those bike lanes are needed, what areas can accommodate those bike lanes, and what the cost would be for installing those bike lanes. And here you see some of the bike lane markings being installed, where the bike lanes pass through vehicle travel lanes, exit lanes, channelized right turn lanes, and also shows you the treatment protocol with regards to what needs to be done in order to install the bike lane markings. The City of Orlando has utilized the green bike lane markings throughout the downtown area. They are a increased visibility safety marker. They do slow down the cars. People do pay attention. I have Mr. Wyatt here to answer any questions you may have regarding the process.
Thank you, John. I appreciate it. Anybody have any questions for Mr. Jones or for Mr. Wyatt?
I do.
Which one?
Either one, I don't know.
Yes, sir.
Either
Mr.
one.
Wyatt, come on up.
Before you come up, let me just ask a general question. Is green the mandatory color that we have to paint our streets? Or is that the generally accepted bike lane color? Because I don't care for it.
Green is the countermeasure. It's only used for countermeasures, for conflict areas. It's not, I have not seen it, which is the best way to describe this? It's not defined as a specific design attribute to put them down in bike lanes, unless it's a conflict area. I have nothing against the green bike lanes. The concern I have is if we put them, just put them down without a prescribed design standard by DOT other than a conflict area, we risk liability issues. I'd like to say that the scope that's on your agenda tonight, it's more than green bike lanes. It's an overall bicycle pathway within the CRA to find where are the best bike paths throughout the entire area. It's not just green bike lanes. It's actually a more thorough study than that.
Mr. Mayor? I don't know how formal these ones are. On that's getting to what my original concern was, is not so much having something that's green be there. It's people have run me. I shouldn't be so dramatic. Cars have made contact with my bike from not seeing me, in particular in the CRA. And even today I was coming down and there was a person who hopped up on the curb in the CRA and was parked there. Not anybody working on construction, just a person on the sidewalk. There's a lot of confusion, I think, between where do cars belong, where do pedestrians belong, where do bikes belong, and in particular, where do bikes belong with the way we have set up parking, with that diagonal parking and stuff.
The problem is, or the challenge is a better word, is in order to establish bike lanes, you have to have minimum lane widths. You have to have 14 feet lane width to do it. You have to have a minimum 10 foot, which is the DOT minimum lane width requirement, and you have to have a minimum 4 foot bike lane width. So you have 14 foot in one lane. So think of a 28 foot pavement, edge of asphalt to edge of asphalt. And I had staff go out and survey over 20 roads in the CRA, and none of them are wide enough. So you have to literally go and widen the roadways to put in bike lanes. And that's a significant cost. That's what I'm concerned about.
In the part where it's diagonal parking, because you can have two Priuses pass each other. Those are so wide.
Oviedo Boulevard, there's Oviedo Boulevard, Railroad Street, Oviedo Boulevard. I think there was one other where you could put them. The problem on Oviedo Boulevard is you're going to have a conflict with the angled parking. And then you're going to set yourself up for a liability issue because if someone backs up and can't see you, hit them, bike lane's there, you've got a potential lawsuit. That's the concern I have as Public Works Director, as putting those in because of that issue. I think they're a great idea. It's just where do you put them to maximize their usage?
Or where do you direct bikes? Even if we're not painting it green, how do we start communicating to bikers where we think it's appropriate for them to travel while in the CRA?
And that scope of services is kind of more towards that than the green bike lanes in its full effect.
Does that make you feel better that it might not be green?
I think it's a good idea to have these bike lanes as our downtown areas develop. You're going to need many ways to get into it other than a car. And so...
And understand, bike lanes aren't necessarily the answer to the bike path. We'll look at, what is the best, if I say it properly, Mark, it's overall the best routing for bikes, not just bike lanes.
Well, I'm a little bit concerned about the cost, because that's my original thought was, well, paint's cheap, let's paint a stripe. And just so the rest of council is aware, and the board, it's $67,000 per mile to do green bike lanes. and the shelf life where it looks perfect is about 5 years. That's not exciting to me. If it's going to be ugly at the 5-year mark, I'm with you. Like, first off, green is kind of stands out there. It makes people notice, though, and we can't have people being run over. So there needs to be some kind of way to communicate where people ought to be traveling.
Well, I will say that this is a common issue that comes up on Metro Plan, and they have a whole division that takes care of bike safety, bike lanes, bike this, bike that, and really what their findings are leading them to is that it's more about educating drivers and bicyclists about the rules of the road. No matter how many bike lanes they try to put on a road that's heavily traveled by a vehicle, they can't improve behavior. That's the trouble. Now, a lot of the recommendations that are starting to come out is, as Mr. Wyatt said, the big thing that's starting to come out from Mickler, right? I forgot his name. It'll come to me.
Mike.
Mike, right? Yes, is actually dedicated lanes with a divider in between them.
Separation.
Well, that
I've seen a
costs
picture of that.
whole lot.
That's a whole nother.
That's a
line.
whole different thing that they're
Yeah.
trying to introduce into design standards for the new roadways, because that's the only true way of doing it, like they do in Europe, where they actually make a separate lane for them. But now, Bobby, correct me if I'm wrong. I seem to remember when we were designing Oviedo Boulevard that we made a 10-foot wide sidewalk so people could ride their bikes up and down the thing.
On the, I believe, yes, sir, on the west side.
Right? I mean, so
There are parts that are restricted, though. There are parts that are restricted.
In front of the David Weekley homes, it's about 4 feet, and the drop, if you encounter a walker and you're biking on the sidewalk, you've got to go off a 6-inch drop straight down.
And the area north of the, is it the apartments up by the aquatic center?
Yeah,
that
that's-
area is more reflective of the actual 10-foot section.
But up there, it seems like a lot of people are walking, so that makes a bicycler who's trying not to run over a pedestrian go in the road, which is okay by me, but is that what this board is wanting to encourage? Because that's going to be the default, is people just biking in the road. It's sort of willy-nilly. Sometimes they'll be on the right, sometimes on the left. I personally like to bike on the intermedian of the road of Oviedo Boulevard because of that angled parking, because if people don't come out and back in.
well, like I said, I know it's a big issue amongst the bicyclists out there, but I think it's more about driver awareness and driver education is what I see coming out of Metro Plan and all the work that they've put into it. I mean, because years back, when I first started serving, on Metro Plan, the whole thing was this, bike lanes, and it's all the driver's fault. And now what they're starting to discover, reluctantly, because he doesn't like to ever admit that a biker is wrong, that, a lot of the times the conflicts are occurring not only because of the car, but because of the bicyclists. And, it's just a whole education thing. And yes, everybody has to share the road and everybody should have some patience. I just don't know if painting lines on roads that obviously weren't originally designed to accept a separate bike lane is the right way to do it. I mean, it's not a lot of money to do the study. That's not the issue. It's just what are we going to get out of it? Heck, I'd rather put that boardwalk in personally between Oviedo and the park and the old historic downtown, but that's just me. So.
Is this part of could this be a step in the right direction towards the boardwalk? Because if it's not, I'm not excited about green. That costs too much, and it's kind of ugly.
Well, remember that the study itself is not about green bike lanes.
It's about-
It's part of it. It's about where can we find the best bike path throughout the CRA? Where are the best places to put a bike or like a defined bike route?
The scope of services would, pardon me, Mr. Wyatt, the scope of services would identify appropriate locations for trail improvements and trail and bicycle amenities.
Thank you. Yes.
Basically, setting up the groundwork for a bicycle network within Oviedo.
Well, Bobby, let me, if I may.
Yeah, go for it.
Do you support doing the study, but not necessarily the slideshow?
Yes, sir. I think the report should be done citywide. That's my own personal, just from
Right.
my
We
job.
can't use the CRA dollars and do it.
Understood.
But however, maybe you can learn something out of it that then staff can.
Yes, sir. I think it would be interesting to know, to see what the results are.
And the cost of the study was $6,200?
Yes, sir. And I think that's reasonable based on the cost and what we get out of it.
Would it be possible, within the scope of the CRA's funding ability, to include 10,000 steps, or no, 5,000 steps from the edges of the CRA? Hear me out on an interesting concept. You know how everybody says you should walk 10,000 steps a day. Well, if we want people to arrive at the CRA by something other than car, we could, as part of the education effort, which may go with all this, try to get a gimmicky thing going and say, hey, bike, because it's only, it would be 10,000 steps, or bike it instead. Could we then expand the scope? I guess that might be a question for the attorneys in the room.
Well, let me see. Does anybody want to expand it to steps right now?
I don't think we can. You got to keep it within the CRA.
Okay, there we go. Now, I will tell you that once around the lake is a third of a mile. 3 times around the lake, you do a mile.
Oh, that's pretty good.
There you go. Any other questions? I'm sorry.
I do. I like the study also because I do think it's going to be important for us to have bike access from multiple areas of the city into the CRA. And so I'd like to see us do the study, but not this $1,000 construction cost, because then you're going to paint our streets green. So I'll make a
Not
motion to advise.
necessarily. Well, we can, I don't have to, we don't have to conduct the cost estimate right away. Yeah, he's back there shaking his head now. So he'll prepare the scope. That's Mark Bernstein with BHB.
I'd like to just do the study. So if I can make a motion to that effect, whatever that cost is.
Sure, go right ahead.
Second.
Yeah, I like that idea too.
All right, so
the
the
green is too much.
There's
But
a motion-
path.
Understood.
There's a motion on the table by Member Tim to approve Resolution 106-17, but not necessarily paint our streets green, is what I heard. Was that about the motion?
Well,
Just the study.
can I ask a question?
Sure.
Is it okay? I think if you approve the scope, don't cut off the cost estimate included with it, because it may be necessary to know what some of these things cost. It will be valuable at some point in the future to have an idea for budgeting.
Well, your
purposes.
scope that we're going to approve includes the
Well,
estimate.
he said, but the $1,000 is included in there, within that, for cost estimating. So I want to make sure that's still.
Should we maybe specify that we don't want them to estimate green lanes, but some other method?
Wait, time out.
Well, that, yeah.
If you'll read this thing, it says probable construction costs. It doesn't say anything about cost to estimate. That
That's-
tells me that you're going to paint the streets green.
No, sir, that's typical language in a scope, engineering scope for cost estimating.
Okay, well,
It's one and the
I'm a
same.
math major, so
I can assure you we can change the language if necessary. It's just cost estimating.
And Tim, with your job, we're glad you're a math major.
yes, thank you. But then I'm okay with leaving it in.
Come on up, Mark. And I'll get to, Deputy Mayor has a question, so we'll just get over to
When we
him.
say construction costs too, one of the options is putting in sharrows on the pavement. It looks like a little guy riding his bike, and that informs that the driver that this is a shared lane, that bicycles are in the lane, not on a bike lane. They're sharing a lane with you. And then putting up signs in the education part. So those are the construction costs, if you will, not widening the road.
Deputy Mayor?
No, I'm just going to say, I mean, even if we took out of the scope to not talk about painting the lanes green, it's still going to be $6,200. So we're doing this scope, and we're going to get the total picture. Whatever, it's not binding us to paint the streets, widen them, or construct them, or paint them green. You're going to get a total picture within the CRA for the $6,200.
Yes, sir.
Good. I'm good.
Councilman Britton, anything?
Not really. Do you have a period of performance?
30 days.
30 days, $6,200 in 30 days?
Yes, sir.
A lot of engineering, huh?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Anything else, Councilman?
Nope, I'm good.
Anything else?
I'll accept a friendly if you want to revise my motion to include this 6,200. Because I think my original motion did without it.
All right, so you'd like to revise your motion just to adopt Resolution 106-17 as presented?
Yes.
Second? Okay. We have a motion and a second. Thank you, Mr. Wyatt.
While we're still talking about green stuff, there is a company in Longwood that engineered the
Can I
product.
call the question so we don't have to talk about green stuff?
Well, it's interesting. We've been offered a free 100-foot stripe wherever we want it to be in the city. So if there's a place where you could stand, maybe short-term, seeing green, like maybe across from Lawton Elementary or something like that, where the road's going to be scraped up anyway, we could have a temporary green thing just to see what it looks like.
Let's do the study first and see. Tim doesn't like green. He made that clear. I say we put it in
I
front of
love
Citizens
green.
Bank on 426.
She's Irish, let's put it in front of her house.
I like
I'm
that
not
too.
Irish at all. I just got the Irish name.
All righty. Questions? The motion's on the table to adopt. All in favor of the motion to adopt Resolution 106-17, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And excuse me, that was 107-17 for clarity. 107-17.
Correct.
I read the wrong resolution number. I apologize. John, anything else?
Upcoming meetings for the rest of 2017, we have the budget work sessions on May 22nd and June 26th. The June 26th budget work session, we should have the preliminary taxable values from the Seminole County property appraiser, so that would be the appropriate time to talk about the TIF reservation, how much you would like to contribute to the TIF at that time.
Okay.
The other upcoming meetings are July 17th, September 18th, and November 20th.
All at 5:30 p.m.
Yes, sir, all at 5:30 p.m.
All righty. Is there any other questions or anything for the good of the order? Mr. Cobb, anything?
No, sir.
Tim, anything?
Are y'all going to consider 95% in the future? And I think that's what you intended to do.
I think everybody here gets to decide, right?
No, but then the city has to basically set that rate.
We're going to have to wait and see what the budget looks like, Tim.
I'm in favor of that, just so you know, on the record.
All righty. Anything else? All righty. Meeting is adjourned.